right, cool. All right, we have people joining. Jason, I want to welcome you to Robo Radio. We've been organizing it for a while. It's truly an honor, inspiration to hear someone like you with your background and expertise. You are connected to one of our designers from your previous startup, Arrival. Um, so I want to welcome Jason Kline, head of design at the Humanoid.ai. Yeah, I'm gonna give you the word and let you kick it off.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to be here. How should we start? Shall I run through a bit about myself? Let's start with that.
Yeah, and then share some of the notes you had, and then we'll switch to Q&A, and our
Sounds
team
good.
will be bombarding you with a bunch of questions.
Okay, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Cool, I'll start. So, yeah, I've just split this into kind of four, I guess, it's different areas, just kind of briefly, I guess, talk about me, what I've done, and I guess my opinions about robotics, which there are a lot if you guys know the industry. So I'll start with a bit about me. So this image, which looks like it's taken in the 1980s, was actually where I got my first job, and you guys can kind of see the sign, the old school Nokia sign. Yeah, so I kind of started my life at university doing a design degree, but to be brutally honest, I nearly failed my degree, and then somehow I got this internship job at Nokia, which in those days the design office was in the kind of southeast of the UK, towards an area called Surrey, and it kind of opened my eyes to I think what design could be outside of uni. Pretty eye-opening. Apart from me traveling 5 hours a day for it, it was amazing, an amazing experience. It was also kind of, I guess, my first touch at working in design in a huge organization, because back then, this was before the iPhone, which destroyed a lot of these type of companies very slowly, but it was during the time of the N series phones. Doubt anyone remembers. But yeah, it was a bit of a peak for Nokia. So that was kind of where I would say first discovered design, because university is a funny thing. It only teaches you so much about the reality, right? Like actually being around other design professionals tells you usually something quite different, and probably something quite brutally honest. But then kind of after I graduated, I shifted pretty quickly to working in consultancy, and this is a shot from my first consultancy I worked with in London, called Tangerine, which is like your traditional bread and butter design industry, design consultancy in London, just kind of covering a whole bunch of stuff. I actually think my first weekend there, I did a double all-nighter, which was pretty brutal. But it teaches you the reality of sometimes what you need to do sometimes. And I learned another strong lesson here of how if you look at the kind of client relationship with a consultancy, how important that is, and how it takes a lot of work, because every time you have to switch to a new client, you need to approach things very differently. Your mindset has to change, because ultimately you're working for a customer who might have a different ethos about what needs to be done. So it taught me a lot, and I learned a lot. Super great people. But then kind of as I kind of shifted, these opportunities came about where I started realizing that I guess technology is where I thought I could kind of get a bit more freshness every time I changed jobs. The industry design industry is not huge. A lot of people know each other. So new opportunities came where it's like, oh, okay, technology can actually really make a difference to what you're doing as a designer. And when you have a new breakthrough technology, it kind of creates new opportunities for design. And this was where I kind of started to shift into that technology space. Obviously, automotive as well. Not automotive in the traditional sense, but if you're looking at electric vehicles, when I kind of shifted into this industry, they were still quite fresh, especially within the commercial environment. So my kind of career took a spin halfway to be like, okay, I'm gonna try to focus my interests around technology and design. But just going back to about why I am where I am now, this, I think working as a designer, you get a bit of interest in what you're doing, and sometimes things appeal to your natural interests or hobbies or anything like that. But for me, the shift of why I joined here was around a few months, about half a year, I think it was, before these guys got in touch with me. My mum actually passed away from cancer, and I supported her whole journey. And when the guys got in touch with me, the vision for robotics was kind of like, if you look at big institutions and big companies in the workforce, robotics is not. It's not now about replacing the existing workforce. It's trying to support areas that need it, and they need it because maybe they haven't got enough access to a workforce, or their workforce just isn't interested in being that same person that they need. And I saw this directly with my mum in the hospital. The shortage of NHS health service workers. It was really bad, and I kind of resonated a lot with the mission that the company wanted to go after, as well as this moment in my personal life, and the two things kind of merged. And it was probably the first time, I would say, in my career where I was a little bit more invested in what I'm doing from a personal stake. So that's kind of led on to where I am now. So what I've built, like, again, this is this is really going back some years, but funny enough, when I was at Nokia, I did a whole bunch of stuff, but I did the very first exploration on this phone, and when I was putting this presentation together, I actually realized, before I was a full industrial designer, I actually touched more UI work, more UI and UX work than I actually did as a typical industrial designer. So I spent a lot of time on this phone in particular doing all of the use cases around how the form factor influences what you do on the screen, and then how you use the screen. So, I was an intern, but I spent so much time designing kind of mock-up screens of, like, okay, this is how you would use this keypad when you're doing maps, or this is how you would use this physical keypad when you were going through your emails, etc. And this was kind of really my first exploration into really realizing that an industrial designer needs to have a lot more tools that at their as part of their skill set in order to kind of talk around the whole story. So this was a bit of a surprise to me when I did this. And then back in consultancy, this worked on so much stuff. This is the Heathrow Express. I don't know if anyone's ever travelled from Heathrow to London. This was one of the last projects I did before I left. This was very good experience working in consultancy, where you would literally go from designing a phone to then designing an airline interior. Crazy. Like, the bandwidth is incredible. But this kind of summarizes, I guess, the peak at one end of what I worked on, and obviously a whole team works on this stuff. So and then moving to LG, which was part of my career. Let me try and move this out of the way. This is actually one of my favorite projects, but one of the smallest projects, which was actually a portable projector. I worked on dozens of consumer electronics. Some I can show, some I can't. But we worked within the European office in London, and I think this is one of my favorite projects. It didn't get to production. It influenced a lot of work, but we spent a lot of time, as best as we can, trying to meld consumer electronics into the European home. And then after LG, obviously, I moved on to Arrival. Let me move this out of the way. Where I spent nearly 8 years on this vehicle. I worked on a lot of other vehicles, but literally, every single part you see, I had to look after to get made, and it was a ridiculous endeavor, huge. Um, it taught me that I have a lot of respect for vehicle designers, the automotive industry. Huge amount of respect, just technically trying to get these things made. It is hundreds of parts. And as the lead on this vehicle, I had to kind of see all those through. I mean, incredibly difficult, incredibly rewarding. Obviously, we all know what happened to the company, but we still made a good product. And then the other important thing is we spend a lot of time working with the customers as well on this product, and the amount of insights coming directly from some of our partners was huge. For instance, we spent more time, I think, on the shelving than than anything in the rest of the vehicle, and it was done like that because it just needed to work well. And then obviously Humanoid, where I'm now. I say what I built. These are the alpha robots. We're looking at building a lot more. We're now in our next phase of alpha. It's not on here, but we've built the biped version of this as well. Super exciting, incredibly crazy when you look at these things working, but also pretty cool. So then, a couple thoughts about design and robotics. I think actually this is more so design and AI. Things are moving quicker than anyone expects. I think everyone expected a linear curve. It is totally not linear. It is something wild, something else. And this is a screenshot from a program called Weavy, which is an immensely powerful AI tool. And we're now seeing huge shifts in I think not just for designers, but for almost every semi-creative industry with AI. I saw Ben Affleck sold his company to Netflix for an immense amount, and I think only every day you just need to look on your feed and see how quick things are changing. And I think design is doing a good job keeping up, but I think it's still evolving quicker than maybe designers feel comfortable with, and it's quite a difficult topic. I know at least a lot of my friends and colleagues as designers, no one's really sure where they want to sit. My opinion is this isn't going to go away. You need to embrace it, but you need to be responsible in how you embrace it. And a lot of people frown upon AI, but I think really you need to look at how you use it, not what it is itself. I think it itself is acceptable, it's good, it's useful. I think how you use it is where the ethics come in. But then going into what I think values, what design values here, at least what we talk about in the team, is finding value. And when designers are working in robotics, and to be honest, in anything, you need to find the value in. And value comes in many forms. It could be speed, it could be efficiency, it could be cost, it could be uptime, it could be anything. But ultimately, you need to find what that is and make sure whatever, robotics system you are giving over adds value. And you'll find many customers have different types of value. The other thing is safety above all else. We've all seen this video. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. Crazy. But what it illustrates is you are putting a very heavy robot near a human. It has to be safe. Above everything else, it has to be safe. Start with that. Because if it isn't, that's really irresponsible to put a human's life at risk. And all it does is give a bad rep to what we're trying to do, and you've really got to be mindful. And safety comes in many things, and ultimately it's up to the business, each and every individual business, how they want to view safety. And the robotics industry yet, I don't think, hasn't had this light bulb moment where every robotics company can do something safely. If you look at the Volvo seatbelt, every car has a seatbelt. We haven't quite yet had that, and I bet you we will at some point. But ultimately, for designers, you've got to think about safety as your number one context. And then building a connection, amazing film. If you guys haven't seen it, Chappie. This relates to value actually quite a lot. You need to make sure whoever you're giving your robot to understands it and builds a connection. And that's not necessarily like an emotional connection. That's a connection where they have a relationship with it. And that relationship could be whatever you want, but they need to have that there in order to understand the value. So we, again, especially in this company, work our best to try to create that connection with our customers and with whoever's going to use it. And that can come in many forms. But I think if you don't build a connection, then I think ultimately you're not really making the right product. And connection doesn't necessarily mean like you got to touch it, you got to hold it, you got to have jokes with it. You've just got to make sure it has a place in your life or in your workspace or in your environment. And then finally, designers, curator, connector, and custodian. I mean, this is just, I think, a little bit of my personal take on design and robotics. And I think also, to be honest, this applies to many things. And this image is supposed to represent kind of connecting the dots, right? But as a curator, you have a responsibility to look at this robot as a reflection of the company. And you need to curate as much as you can, whether it's internally or externally, to make sure that we're all doing that. A connector is someone that bridges the gap between different people, different departments, and I think design is a very powerful tool to allow that to happen. We spend a lot of time, like as an example, we spend a lot of time working with people in different time zones, different geographical locations, and I like to encourage the team to act as the person that can help bring different departments together. It's really important. When you're in any organization, it's natural for people to sit in their own little world or sit in their own bubble or try to deal with their own personal circumstances. But, we again have a responsibility to just make things tie together. And then custodian, really, it's about making sure that is this the right thing? Or like posing the questions, is this the right thing for the customer? Is this the right thing for the user? Do you have to push back or do you not? So yeah. Lessons learned, super quick. Change is good, take the leap. This is a super cheesy image. I couldn't find another image that expresses it. But basically, like, don't be afraid to do something different. Don't be afraid to be uncomfortable. So much innovation happens when people are put in a difficult spot and have got to think about something in a massively different way. Especially with like my career, that I've taken some very big jumps, kind of going, well, I have no idea about this. I've never designed a vehicle before. But if you have enough interest in it and enough passion, that will help you just get over that hurdle. So this is one of the big advices: don't be afraid to change up. And then the generalist. So for those who know me, I'm obsessed with this designer called Ash Thorpe, who's basically can do everything creatively. He designed, if you guys have seen the last Batman movie, the Matt Reeves one, he did the vehicles on that, and he's an amazing artist, amazing storyteller. I'd call this guy the generalist because he can do everything. And when I say generalist, I mean you don't have to be amazing at everything. But it's a power if you can be able to touch many different things, if you can be able to interact with many different people from different disciplines, if you can do different things that maybe someone else can't, it's super powerful. And the trick is that if you go into an organization, especially like a startup, where you might not have hundreds of people, thousands of people, the generalist becomes super powerful. And obviously as a company develops, you need specialists, but I always look in my team for generalists. And also there's a bandwidth, right? But please, I encourage you guys, look up Ash Thorpe, amazing artwork, amazing storytelling, super great. And then nearly finished, when I say learn when to fight, know when to move on. Designers can get quite obsessed. And I think it's very important to know how far to push something. And I don't think there's an answer for this, but I think everyone gets their own feel like as you go through your career. But you don't want to reuse your energy in the wrong place, because everyone has a finite amount of energy and you want to direct it into the right place. So the one of the biggest things I've learned is like, okay, do you admit defeat on this, but it allows you to move on and do something better on something else? Do you concede on something you want to do and find the middle ground? But ultimately, you got to move on. Don't get obsessed. You know, many designers work on many things across their lifetime. Um, I often think that if I was to look back at things that I was obsessed over 15 years ago, I'd probably be saying, well, like, why did you care so much? And don't get me wrong, caring is great, but you've got to figure out, is the juice worth the squeeze, as as one of my team members always say. And then the last bit of advice is always believe in yourself. Super cheesy again, but like a designer's another one of designer's superpower is intuition. Um, if you've got a gut feeling about something, don't ignore it. The trick though is when you are going to tell your story about something to a client or to a member in a different discipline, you still need to be able to ratify logically what you are saying. Um, but as a starting point, a gut feeling is never a bad thing, and I think I would always encourage designers to always listen to their gut. And I also think it's irrelevant of your experience. Humans are very good at reacting to things, and listen to yourself if you're reacting good or badly to something. Great. That was my quick presentation. Hope that's all good.
Nice. Thank you so much. This was amazing. I love how you owned the cheesiness. You're like, okay, this is cheesy, but I still think it's important, and
Yeah.
you communicated. I think that's great. Thank you so much
Good.
again.
Good.
Cool. So we prepped a few questions for you. Uh, a lot of them I feel like you kind of covered, but we still kind of want to
Yeah.
dive deeper into some of the topics and just learn, but mainly maybe understand your opinion. Who wants to go first?
Me.
Mm,
Thank
mm.
you. It was very inspiring. Um, I'm very interested about like your background. My question is about like what lessons from automotive design influence how you approach humanoid robot design today.
Yeah. I think I think they're both incredibly complex systems, just in their own ways. Um, you, I think there's more that's different as well. So, like, if you take, for instance, the way you sit in a car, you have a direct physical relationship with a vehicle. You have an emotional response to being in that car and feeling it. You also have a very strong emotional response with a robot, but you can't touch it. So I think there's a lot of similarities in understanding that human response, the human emotion, but the biggest difference is touch and feel. Um, and I think for robots in particularly, this goes back to like my safety comment earlier. We need to find a way for humans to be safe enough to interact with these things. Um, but what I'm taking away from the automotive world is just the power of that emotion. Is you can't underestimate it. You can't. And a lot of people buy vehicles these days for that connection. Obviously, some people buy them from a functional purpose as well. But you can't deny when you're spending a lot of money on something, you want to like it, and you want to be able to interact with it properly. So, yeah, the biggest I think takeaway is yeah, the physical connection, but it's just not quite there yet for the robotics.
I think a lot of our questions would be around the transition of your thinking as a designer from
Mm.
automotive towards your current organization. humanoid robotics, what were the uh downsides, I guess? Like where were the moments where you're like, oh fuck, that's my habit from my automotive experience. I should change the way I think.
Yeah, such a good question.
Mm,
I think the I think yeah, there's probably two different ways of thinking about this. Um, the When you get in a vehicle, when you use a vehicle, it's quite predictable where it's going to go, right? You're driving it, you're steering it, you can control it. You know, even when it's going through an autonomous mode, you kind of know where it's going, right? You can see it. The difference is with robots, you kind of need to forget that. You're around a robot that is completely, um, the degrees of freedom are huge. It can move in any way you want. So you need to approach this where you're giving a certain level of control, but you're giving control to something that can move in a way different range than a vehicle. And that's what I think was the difference, is the predictability of vehicles versus the unpredictability of robots. And this is very much something that will change. Robots will get better, but at the end of the day, it's still hardware, and hardware can do things you don't expect it. So I think you need to switch from, like, how can I design something that I know will happen, to, like, how can I design for something that I don't know will happen, like the unpredictable, because there are so many things that can happen you just don't expect. So it's like, how do you deal with that? And I think it's just
hmm
about maybe not being so precious. Go through the development cycles. Trust that developing hardware and testing it will tell you the right answer.
Gotcha. Um, we had a very similar question about your sort of your how your thinking changed. I feel like you answered it a lot. Can I maybe flip that question a little bit? And I'll give you a little bit of context. When we're hiring designers for Hello Robo, when we were helping partners to hire, and there are not many designers, whether it's software, hardware design, who are like, hey, I have like 25 years in robotics. And a lot of designers we interview, they come from different worlds. And one of the questions that kind of puzzles them sometimes, we ask, how do you think your job or your thinking will change if you're going to start designing for robotics today? So I'm curious, if you ask a designer candidate you are hiring for humanoid, where do you think their thinking should change?
Um,
Or you
yeah,
can just repeat what you said. Yeah.
it's a super good question. I This industry, what I've observed is the use case of where your robot is going to be and how it's being used is almost number one. In a lot of other places I've worked, the use cases are taken for granted. Like when you design a phone, you know, like someone's going to hold it there, like someone's going to interact with it. Whereas robotics is changing so much, and there are so many things which are still unclear. You need to really have a good grasp of understanding the use case that your robot's going to be put in, and how what you're designing is correct for that use case and context. So that's one thing I look for. Another thing I look for is just someone's ability to be that generalist, right? Like I said before, because if you can do, or if you're open to doing a wide variety of things, then you're probably good at dealing with the unpredictable, and dealing with the unknown. And dealing with the unknown is super important. Like the amount of benchmarks, good benchmarks for robotics, there aren't that many. Um, I mean, there are like cobots and stuff like that, but for like humanoids particularly, I mean, there aren't really any commercial benchmarks. So, understanding or really delving deep into understanding how something is going to be used is really important, and seeing if people recognize that. That's what I look for.
Hmm. Cool. Thank you. I'm good with my questions. Who's next?
I had like the similar to the topic that we already raised about like the emotions and especially your keyword was safety. What do you think about like the oblique of the robots of futures? So should they be like more look like a human or maybe more alien or other options as well?
Yeah, yeah. This is again a really good question. Um, without sounding lazy, I don't think there is one answer. Um, I think it depends on so many things. Now, like you only have to go and watch something on Netflix about robots to know that there's a wild perception about robots. Wild, it's crazy. Um, I think ultimately it comes down to where's the robot going to be and what's it going to do, right? The context, and then what does the company believe in? How human or not how human does this robot or should this robot be? You will find that people's perceptions is quite different, and even geographically, I think you can see a bit of a difference. Like how many small little cute robots do you see popping up now? Like Sprout, I saw on Sprout the other day, amazing, and there was another one from Cartwheel Robotics. I don't think there is one answer. I think if you were to look back in 20, 30 years, maybe we can say, well, actually, this is the answer. But I don't think there is one. But I think whatever you do, that whatever it looks like has to fulfill the purpose of why it's there. You know, if you were to design, like, let's look at, is it Amica? You know, the way that robot is designed, it looks like a human, but it's intended for like an entertainment purpose. And we know that, like, within the research and academia, androids are proven to be a successful, or the hypothesis is they will be a successful form of communicating with humans. So, without sounding lazy, I don't think there is one answer, but you need to look at what does the company believe in is right, and then what is the context of use. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I want to also ask like how are today's like robots are ready for everyday life? I know in demos, in all these promo videos, all
Ah,
companies, all humans like show in the real environment, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
how do
yeah.
you think like are we there yet? Or
Um, it's a super good question. I think you see a lot of videos coming out from companies, and um, no one truly knows the capability. You only know what you're looking at. I can tell you it's getting there though, absolutely getting there. Whether so fundamentally though, I think commercial success is very different to a robot being able to pick something up off the floor. Um, the successful robots will be the ones that obviously do their job and commercially are successful. So I think the capabilities are getting there. I think safety is developing slowly. I think, um, just look at the hardware coming out of China. Like technically, obviously, these things are becoming better. Um, but is it there yet? I don't know. Like, again, I think it's different across industries. If you look at automation within an industrial environment, full of robotics, fully integrated. Just go to any modern car factory, it's there. In the home, very different, very different. So yeah, I think in the industrial manufacturing kind of setting, I think it's got a good footing. In the home, I think we're looking at like live developments every day. But until we see the first proper robots being sold for the home and them doing the jobs reliably, it's hard to say that things are ready.
And in terms of, for example, uncontrolled edge cases, how the process going on? So like, uh, yeah, how you design them?
Yeah, so yeah, edge cases, very good point. Um, so like, I'll give you an analogy. So when you're driving your car, if your oil line breaks, can your car still drive? Probably. I mean, I've seen those, right? You've got to decide if an edge case is absolutely catastrophically bad for the robot, or is it just something that you know you need to fix and it will be the robot can still do its job. So like, if an arm breaks on a robot through some obscure reason, like that's got to be dealt with. But I think you've really got to look at the edge cases and go, can the robot still function? Like I've dropped my phone millions of times on the floor. I've got a huge crack. I now have to pay £400 for, but it still works. And I dropped it while I was holding 3 shopping bags worth of food in something I probably shouldn't have. I shouldn't have been holding it like that. I was probably holding it with like 2 fingers. But it still works. So you've got to decide, is the edge case going to completely break the robot, or can it still do its job and you can kind of fix it later? I do think you'll see a distinction between the two, right? And I think that's how you decide if it's worth solving or not.
Anyone else?
Yeah, can I be the next? I want to say that my firstly, like additional thoughts that my first phone was Nokia. Yeah, and I really like this company, even they're not so popular today.
Yeah,
Yeah, and my question is, if the humanoid had their own design language,
yeah,
rather than copying just from humans, what would it look like?
yeah. um, yeah, I mean, design language is a super complicated topic. I try to discourage going to find the design language. Like you shouldn't go to find it. If you solve what you're trying to solve, in my experience, it can happen naturally. So I think if we were to was your question about defining another design language? Was that the question?
Yeah, I think to if we can create the robot and not watching how the not copying human species,
Got
I
it.
think.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, if I had my way, I absolutely love like a lot of the Disney robotics robots. I don't know if you guys have seen them. Absolutely adorable. Absolutely fun. I think robots have to have an element of fun and an element of honesty. I think we've chosen the humanoid form because it provides a lot of versatility in an already human-built environment. But if you were to start from scratch, I think you don't need to strictly stick to that morphology, not always. And I think some of the examples I gave before, like cartwheel robotics, those totally don't look like a human, still humanoid form, but are clearly more of a robot. So I think, yeah, there's always opportunities, I think, to move away from things that feel more human. I think the tricky thing is, and this is what we try our best, is when you try to make a robot that is within the humanoid form factor, you really start to get guided by like human proportions, human-like movement, and if you can't necessarily fulfill on those, you get a weird kind of uncanny valley type moment, right? So like if your thing looks like a human, but it's not really shaped like a human and it doesn't move like a human, that's quite uncomfortable. Whereas if you look at a lot of the work done by, like Disney Research, Disney Robotics and companies like that, they don't have to worry about that. So it brings a lot of benefits. And again, like Sprout, the robot Sprout I gave the other day, it's this cute little thing that can walk like ET. But it can do that, and it's legitimate as a product because that's how they've approached it. So I think if there was another design language that would come about, it would definitely be maybe doing like the opposite of human-like morphology, and explore things that are, not so human-looking, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. And I think this, like the next question from this sphere, what the hardest challenge in creating humanoids right now? Maybe some physical
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
borders, cognitive, emotional, safety again.
Yeah, yeah. So um, I can't remember where I saw this article, but a really great way of breaking down the challenges is like looking at from a physical, emotional, cognitive level. Um, so like one thing I think if you were to look at like an industrial robot from a physical perspective, it absolutely has to lift what it needs to lift. And so, from a physical perspective, we put a lot of effort into making sure it can do that properly. It's really important when you're looking at something that is so heavily task based. It has to be strong enough. I mean, it sounds obvious, but I think it's something not looked at or not given enough light in robotics is that actually technically making these things is actually tough. It's not that easy. I mean, obviously a lot of robots coming out of China can do backflips and all that stuff. That's great. But a customer doesn't care about a backflip. They care about whether you can lift a tote with 20 kilos in it, right? And that brings different challenges. And you've got to really make it robust, make it strong, and that's not as simple as it can be. The other issue is it's again what I talked about in my presentation about things moving quick. Like the AI curve is just wild. It's moving wildly quick. It's going so much quicker than anyone thought, and the hasn't hardware isn't quite moving at that pace. Like everyone knows, China is amazing at innovating hardware, and look at how much stuff gets, I guess, replicated and replicated more over there to a better level. Look at the automotive industry, great. Like I'm seeing BYD cars everywhere, and they look amazing. But the hardware needs to catch up as quick as the AI is developing, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges physically is getting that done. Cognitively, if we break it down, it goes back to again what I mentioned before about the use cases and understanding benchmarks. Like, sure, like we're all designers, we can kind of draw on other industries to figure out how something works, but like ultimately, you do need to educate yourself with how things are done before to give you context, and there isn't that much. There isn't that much. So I think until we see this field being like fully established commercially, I think there isn't really an answer like how we should interact with these things. I think it's just designers using their intuition and listening to customers that can help with this. And then from the emotional side, like I don't need to explain this too deeply. We all know people are super scared of these things. Rightly so. Like rightly so, they should be. And I think it's our job to make them safe enough that perceptions can change. Culturally, different countries also view robots wildly different. So like in Japan, the way robots are treated with a soul is wildly different to like Europe or North America, right? So you need to get over that cultural barrier to know that some countries or cultures will accept these things better than the others. And how can you make this thing, going back to my presentation before, connect with who you're giving it to? And emotion can come in many ways. You can sell a robot to a customer and they can see their uptime go up 50% and that gives them a good response. That's an emotional response. An emotional response isn't about, I love you. It's about getting this positive vibes from the thing you're using. So that's the other thing to really figure out is that you got to give this emotional connection to something, and it's not about it being, happy, joy. It's about showing that, someone can actually get some positivity out of it, whether it's in their work life, whether it's looking after their kids, whether it's doing a job that they hate. You need to get over that barrier.
That's great. Yeah, I'll follow up on the challenges. If you could remove one constraint from like humanoid design today, which would unlock the biggest leap forward? Like what's blocking the progress?
Yeah. I wish. Oh yeah. I mean, I wish walking was the hardest thing, but I don't think it is actually. Clearly, with robots doing backflips, everything's possible. But like, I think what I think is the biggest thing to unlock is safety, and the vision and sensing comes with that. Like vision and sensing for a robot is really important, and it unlocks safety. And I wouldn't say I want to remove it, But I wish I had a time machine and could go forward 20 years where someone's unlocked, this suite of sensors that everyone can use and everyone knows is safe. Like if you're in a room with a robot, so if you're in a room with someone else, you don't have to be looking at them to know that you can communicate with them and to probably guess where they are. With robots, you need to really make sure that it can see everything it needs to see. And AI and VLAs and everything is all very good, but you still need to make a robot see and hear, just like a human would. So, I think vision and sensing is something we try to deal with as much as we can, and it's complicated. It's super complicated. But yeah, I think if someone had a magic answer for that, I'd say I'd love for this universal sensing solution to be handed out to every robotics company and say this works, put it in your robot.
Okay. And let's say you have time machine looking at 10, 15 years ahead. What will feel obvious about humanoid design that feels like impossible today to
Yeah,
be designed?
yeah. I mean, I think it's happening slowly, and I think we've seen a few companies get some major investment rounds um, building towards this. But we're seeing. Well, my prediction is just like your phones will see some kind of universal OS built into a robot. Um, you will probably see, and this is just me guessing and me seeing from around the industry what's happening. Companies might start to specialize in hardware and then the brain separately, and then merge them together. So a great example is like look at the Android ecosystem and how many Android handsets there are, where an Android manufacturer would get the Google OS, maybe customize it a little bit, but the bare bones is the Android system, but their hardware is theirs. And I think that will become more prevalent. I think it's such a hard challenge to make the full brain that probably once a few companies crack it and crack it well, that we will see a lot of robotics companies not needing to necessarily spend so much time doing that. So I think that will happen. It will probably be a long time away. I don't know who will do it, but I think that's a trend that we might see at some point.
Cool. We have about 5 minutes left. Any last questions before we conclude? Um, Maybe I'll ask a couple of off-topic quick questions. You mentioned Chappie. Any other movie you love about robotics?
Uh, Oof. I mean, I would say there's some anime. If anyone's seen Ghost in the Shell, go watch it. That's
Mhm.
the number one movie for me from the is it 90s? I think it's early 90s,
Like
late
kind of,
80s.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it is so far ahead in terms of robotics means in the future. It will blow your mind.
Mm.
It's such an old film, but it's still I've watched it multiple times. Don't watch the remake. There's a Scarlett Johansson
Mm.
remake. Watch the
Right,
original.
right.
It is so much better.
Hmm.
And also the graphic novels are excellent as well. So
Hmm.
that's what I would recommend. And I would say start there as the first one, and then chronologically work forward because I think everyone will be very disappointed watching another robot film after watching that. I think.
Hmm. Cool. Favorite book about robotics?
Oof. Uh, I won't go into it, but read Life 3.0, and
Okay,
that'll
never heard of it.
blow your mind, and probably scare you at the same time. It's called Life 3.0. Very good.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Never heard of it. Um, Great. Jason, thank you so much. It's been pleasure, honor. Obviously, you definitely inspired us and shared a lot of knowledge. Thank you so much again. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, great.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for having me,
Yeah,
Lucian.
guys.
Have a good
awesome.
one.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.